So let's imagine that the Carters would like us to create, oh, I don't know, perhaps a custom sofa for their Brigantine Beach home. To do so, we would select the appropriate project on our project and specifications grid, and we can click the New Item button, or we can right-click and do New Item as well. Either way, that brings us to the Item window. And I like to think of the Item window as the client information window about a particular specification. In fact, we can even see our description field is labeled Client Description. This reminds me that whatever we type into this field is what the client's going to read on the proposal and invoices and even certain reports that are available for the client's benefit. So let's go ahead and put in our custom sofa. Of course, you could be as verbose or as elegant in your description as you'd like. You have all of your available formatting along the right-hand side, bold, italicized, underline, etc. So you can really make your description look as dramatic as you'd like on those documents. Let's jump for a moment over to the Picture tab. Design Manager allows you to associate an image with your item, and you can do so in a few ways. If you still have a scanner attached to your computer, you could put a copy of the image onto the scanner and click the Scan button. Design Manager will automatically bring that into the picture control for you. If you have a copy of the picture already saved on your computer or even your network, you could use the Load button to bring that in and also immediately put it into the picture control. But most commonly these days is you can use the Copy Image from Clipboard option. So I could just go out to my vendor's website or any website really and just copy an image. Here's our beautiful custom sofa, and just use the paste image from Clipboard to immediately bring it in to the picture control, so I don't have to go through that process of downloading the picture or saving it and then bringing it in. Let's jump back onto the Item tab, and we'll input some additional information as well, such as the location. As I said before, locations in Design Manager can be physical locations, or they can be those conceptual locations such as design time or reimbursable expenses. But notice as I click into the location field that my search icon, as indicated by the magnifying glass in the bottom left corner, is now in color or highlighted. That indicates to me that there's a glossary associated with that field, in this case the location glossary. So if I click on it, I can see the current locations that I already have created for the Carter's Brigantine Beach home. But let's say that the Carters would like us to have our custom sofa in their master bedroom. Well, I could create a new one with the Add button, make a new location, but I could also use the global list or the company-wide list of locations. These are locations that I have used repeatedly in the past, and I've created a company-wide glossary for them so I don't have to create them manually each time. And in fact, here's our master bedroom. So if I select it on the company-wide list and hit the Choose button, I then bring that master bedroom into the Carter's Brigantine Beach home specific location glossary list. Choose again, and now we're associating our custom sofa into that master bedroom. The quantity is optional. If you leave it blank or 0, Design Manager will treat it as a 1, as it does its mathematics behind the scenes, but I have to go ahead and put that in specifically. The units is the unit of measure, and we're going to have all of our standard units available for you. If you don't see the unit in there, you can certainly type one in as well. And we'll go ahead and use each for our custom sofa. The sales category is another one of Design Manager's glossaries. The sales category allows you to classify a good or service for the client so that you can answer questions such as, what was my profitability on accessories this year, or what was my total cost on wall or window treatments? And moreover, if we use furniture as an example, each sales category comes configured with an array of sales or revenue and cost of goods sold accounts associated with it. So when we ultimately go to invoice the Carters for our custom sofa, we don't need to remember to use the 41,900 furniture revenue account. Nor when the bills come in from our vendors do we need to remember to use the 51,900 furniture cost of goods sold account. Simply by classifying it consistently as furniture, Design Manager will handle all of the accounting for us. So let's go ahead and say that our custom sofa is indeed of the furniture sales category. And this again is all of our item information, or basically the information for the client's benefit. So now let's go ahead and enter in some of our vendor information. And to do so, we'll click on the Add button, as indicated by the green plus sign, which brings us down to the component window. Again, this is where we're going to put in most of our vendor information. Notice now that our description is labeled as PO, or purchase order description. This lets us know that we can input any description or information that we'd like into this field, knowing that it'll only be viewed by the vendor and ourselves. So we could put in sensitive information like cost information or manufacturer's catalog numbers, buying terms, etc., and knowing that the client will never see those unless we so desire. We do default the description down to keep our data entry as fast and as accurate as possible. We could overwrite that. And let's change our custom sofa to, how about the sofa frame. Remove our bolding. Just like we could classify the custom sofa itself to the Carters with our sales category, we can also classify the component to the vendor. And in this case, we'll classify it as merchandise. Vendor, of course, would be another glossary. And let's say that Century Furniture is going to provide our sofa frame. Remember that I showed how we have several addresses with each project, and one of them being our default shipping location. So Design Manager is recognizing that fact that we want most of our goods and services to go directly to the Carter's home, and it's defaulting that shipping location for us. Another one of those configurations was how I like to calculate my pricing structure for the Carters. And I've chose to mark up the cost at 30%. But I could have also selected to discount off of list, or I would sit the Carters down with my vendor catalog or my vendors' websites and show them all the custom sofas that are available. And I could say, listen, I can get you that exact same sofa at 20% off of the list price, knowing that I could indeed get it off of at a 30 or 40% off. I even have a fee pricing structure. The fee pricing is used generally more by commercial firms whose clients are actually paying the vendor directly, and the design firm gets their revenue as a percentage of all the goods and services that are procured. Let's go ahead and use our more traditional markup of cost at 30% in our example. The vendor deposit percentage actually comes from my Century Furniture vendor. This indicates to me that my terms with Century are they require me to provide a 50% payment up front on an order before they'll begin to process it. The MFG CAT number, or manufacturer's catalog number, is entirely optional, and that might also be known as a SKU number or an item number. And if you input one, it'll be displayed on the purchase order and other documents related to the vendor. Go ahead and make one up for our frame and enter it. And now all we need to do is enter in our cost and pricing information. In Design Manager, cost is always what the vendor is charging you, while price is what you are charging the client. So let's imagine that our sofa frame cost $1,800. Notice again that our quantity and unit of measure have also defaulted down, again trying to keep our data entry as fast and as accurate as possible. So in this case, our extended cost would be the same as the unit. We then mark it up 30%, and we calculate a sell price of $23.40 just for our sofa frame. Now, I may tend to prefer round numbers and might want to just charge an even $2,500 for the sofa frame. I can certainly do so just by changing the sell price, and Design Manager will automatically calculate my markup amount and even the percentage out to 4 decimal places for accuracy. So you always have full control of what you're charging your client, of course. We'll leave our set back to our 30% for our example. And if we click OK, we now have our first component associated with our custom sofa item. Now, quite frequently, you may only have a single component for a particular item. If I go out and buy a vase from a vendor, I'm simply going to resell that vase to my client. But I like to use the custom sofa example And then I can show how Design Manager can have a single item provided for the client that's comprised of many different components from a variety of vendors. So let's go add a few more. Go back to our Add button. And now we can see we're on component 002. And let's say this will be our sofa fabric. We'll leave the fabric classified as merchandise. For our vendor, again, I could use my glossary, but if I know my vendor code, I could simply type it in directly. Design Manager recognizes that KRAVE is indeed the code for Kravet by putting the name directly to the code field. In the case of the fabric, however, let's not ship that to the Carters. Rather, let's ship that directly to Century Furniture so they can fabricate the custom sofa for us. We'll leave our fabric marked up at 30%. Notice that I do not require to send a deposit with Kravet. They'll simply invoice me in full. Go ahead and put in a catalog number. And let's say that our fabric is $85 per yard and we need 14 yards. We then extend the cost, mark it up 30%, and we calculate a price on the fabric at $15.47. Go ahead and click OK, and now we have our second component. We have our fabric from Kravet and our frame from Century. Let's go ahead and add one more. Go back to the Add button. Now on component 3, and let's say this is going to be our sofa trim. We'll leave the trim set to merchandise. Let's say that Kravet is going to provide the trim as well. Notice now that Design Manager has defaulted Century Furniture as my shipping location. It's recognized that I changed it throughout my addition of components process, and is now using that as the default, again, to make my data entry as fast and accurate as possible. We'll continue to mark up at 30%, put a catalog number in, and let's say we have a decent deal on the trim at $25 per yard, and we need 16 yards. We extend the cost. We mark it up to $120 at 30%, and that gives us a sell price of $520 just for the trim. Click OK. And now we have our three components, fabric and trim from Kravet, frame from Century. Now we can see the cost of each, along with the price to the Carters of each, which are then totaled for the item in the bottom right corner. To the left of that, there is our deposit percentage that we had created when we set up the Carter's Brigantine Beach Home. Again, in general, I want to require the Carters to provide me 50% of the cost of the item up front. And as we can see, the $22,350 is indeed half of the $44,07 for the total price of the custom sofa. Again, you always have full control over what you'd like to request from the Carters. So if you wanted to ask for an even $2,500, you could certainly do so. But we'll continue to ask for 50%. And that is all the item and component information necessary.